if I'm a young dentist, I'm trying to buy my first practice. What are your thoughts about, should I buy in a big city? Should I buy in a small town that maybe has less competition? I mean, you've worked with a lot of different dentists. Like, what's your thoughts on this?
The primary motive for most purchasers is to practice close to home. So if you live in downtown Toronto or Vancouver, by example, you probably want to buy a practice there. So you have a short commute and you can be at the ready if patients need you for emergencies. The problem with that right now is that a lot of the downtown cores, I think Calgary is the most extreme example, they're ghost towns because a lot of the patients that were attending those downtown practices were office workers. And if they're working from home, Canadians are voting with their feet and saying, I don't want to drive downtown and pay for parking just to see the dentist. I don't work there anymore. And it looks like the work from home phenomenon is here to stay for upwards of 50–60% of Canadians. So yeah, downtown's great. It's dynamic. It's the big city. We all love that. But if there's not enough patient flow because of the migration back to the suburbs and then the migration to the suburb practices, I have to think that the suburb dental practice is probably a better investment. You're still close to the city, but you have patients. When it comes to buying in rural and remote Canada, smaller towns, smaller communities, they have entrenched dental practices, and setting up a brand new practice there is a very risky proposition because there's only so many people in those communities and they're probably loyal to the existing practice. So setting up in those smaller communities, I wouldn't recommend that. But buying in small town, rural Ontario or rural Canada is a wonderful place to be, to raise a family. It's a simpler lifestyle. I live 3 hours north of Toronto right now in a very small town. I love it here. I've got to know everybody in 6 months. It's peaceful, it's safe, the kids are running around. So from a business perspective, I think rural Canada is a better investment overall, or remote areas, smaller communities, only because you typically have lower rents to rent the space if you don't own the building. You generally have slightly lower wages because the people in rural and remote Canada don't earn as much as the big city folks.
Right.
So you've got ample patient flow if you buy an established practice, and you probably have lower overhead. The big downtown core locations, I'm quite worried for them in the long term. I just don't think that's the place to buy right now. I would look at the suburbs or small town Canada.
Yeah, from a marketing perspective, what I've noticed is that if you're in a big city, one advantage you have is that there is a lot of mobility. There's a lot of young professionals moving in and out. So they're always looking for a new dentist. And I mean, obviously that's going to change now with COVID, with people kind of like vacating the big cities, but that was an advantage you had before. With smaller towns, it is tougher to penetrate them because a lot of those people have been there for, multiple generations, perhaps. They already have a dentist. They already have a place to go to. So there's not a huge flow of people looking for a new dentist. But right now with this pandemic, there might be, because like you said, if they work downtown and now they move back home, they're looking to find a dentist close to home. There might be a new, influx of patients that could be calling you from a small town.